All right, so I got some new rims and tires for the car. We're gonna throw them on today. These are 295 40 20s in the back, and these are 275 40 20s for the front. Here's what's on the car right now. It's really tucked in. They're 245 50s. They're not car tires at all. I think they come off an SUV. Yeah, so these rims come off of a 2019 Camaro. They're actually a stock rim from a 2019. I think they're really cool looking wheel. You don't see them too often. At least I don't see them too often around here. So yeah, I'm super excited. I think they're gonna look really cool on this car. Get these lug nuts off, get a jack under it, and we'll get to work. Alright, these are looking really good. Front ones are right there. The back ones, I'm pretty sure we're gonna need to do like a 1/4 inch spacer, but not bad. Let's get her down. Front ones are just flush. Like actually maybe even sticking out a little. I guess one thing about the front is I'm in desperate need of a wheel alignment. You can see this one looks like it's probably straighter than this one. This one maybe looks like it's tilting out a bit, you know, like that. Wheel alignment might bring that top in a little bit, but wow, is this thing looking good. What's the back's looking like so far? Oh yeah, much better. All right, let's get the rims on the other side and get this thing finished up. And we'll stand back and take a look at it. All right, with everything torqued up, I think I'll back her to the garage so we can stand back and see what she looks like. You know what, I think we're just gonna go ahead here and get the trunk open, and I'll air down that back suspension a little bit so we can get a little better look. But yeah, I think I like the fronts. Fronts are like flush, but the backs are not quite there. You know, like just a 1/4 inch I think would do it. All right, so the first thing we need to do is figure out how far our rim and tire need to come out for it to be flush with the fender here. I'm gonna put a little bit of tape on the fender, just so I don't scratch the paint with my level. Then I'm gonna take this level, put it up against the fender well, and then of course level it right about there. Then we're gonna measure this gap, see how far this wheel and tire has to come out. So it looks like we're getting about 16 millimeters. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna order wheel spacers that are 16 millimeter thick, or as close as we can get to it. And we're gonna put them in behind the wheel here, and that's gonna space it out. So I picked up these Performance World spacers. They're 50-500, and this is on a 2014 Camaro. They're 1/2 inch billet wheel spacers. So they're billet aluminum, they're not that cheap cast aluminum. You're gonna kind of try to stay away from that if you can. And these will be about 12.5 millimeters, so it's pretty close to our 16 millimeter. And I think it's gonna look really good, and it's not gonna end up sticking out way too far or something like that. I'll get these things opened up and we'll have a look at them. So these wheel spacers have all these holes in them. They do multiple bolt patterns. They do 5 on 4.5, 5 on 4.75, and 5 on 5. We're using them for the 5 on 4.75. All you do is slip them on the wheel studs, then you put your rim back on, and they space the wheel out. Pretty simple. The other thing I picked up is longer wheel studs. It's pretty self-explanatory here. You're going to want to get wheel studs that are the same amount of thickness as your spacer, longer. So these are 1/2 inch spacers. We got wheel studs that are about 1/2 inch longer. These ones are actually a little bit longer than 1/2 inch because that's all the parts store had in stock. And I wasn't gonna wait in order. So once we got all our parts, we can get back to the car and we'll get it all ripped apart and we'll start putting our new wheel studs in. Before I get too far, I'm gonna take the wheel spacer and just test fit it onto the studs and make sure it's the right one. So with this spacer being standard, you can call it standard with the 4.75, the car is actually metric wheel pattern, so it's 5 on 120 millimeters, 120.6 millimeters, I believe. So that means this is so close to fitting, but it's just a little bit too tight. So I'm gonna have to go around and all the holes for this car, I'm just gonna have to drill them out one size bigger. Just to hog them out just a little bit, just so it gets that extra clearance it needs to slide on. The next thing I'm gonna do is remove the brake caliper, and then we can pull the brake rotor off. That way we can get access to where our studs are gonna come out. We'll have a close-up look at how the studs come out. You just pound the studs straight through here and they'll come out the back. You can see they're quite a bit longer. It's not going to look like we're having enough clearance to put the studs in and out with the hub installed into the spindle. Okay, so next thing we're going to do is take off the center nut on the CV shaft, and then we're going to have those 3 bolts in behind the hub to take out, and then the hub is going to slide straight off. All right, with the CV nut off, and we'll remove those 3 bolts. All right, with the 3 bolts removed, we're just gonna slide it straight off. Now normally, this thing will be rusted right in there really bad, but since this is a newer car, it came out pretty good. They get rusted real bad between the hub and the spindle here. So when we put it back together, we're gonna put a bunch of never sees on there. So sometimes they also rust in the middle here on the splines. In that case, you can take a hammer, tap the CV shaft back to get it loosened up. If they're stuck in the spindle here, use a chisel and kind of chisel it away. Also tapping on the bolts after you make them loose will help break it free. Just whatever you do, when you're hammering on it, don't hammer right here. That's gonna damage the bearing, and then you'll be replacing the hub. Make sure you check your bearing right now while it's out. Make sure it's smooth, and we can hammer out the studs. Now to install the new ones, you're gonna want to slide them through, and I like to use a socket, and just same thing. You could also use a press for this if you want. I don't have a press here right now, so I'm just gonna hammer them in and get the other 4 in, and we'll put it all back together. When you're pounding them in there like that, you'll kind of hear it go high pitch. That's metal on metal, the stud bottoming out. That's when you want to stop. And then always make sure you have a look at them, make sure they're bottomed right out. All right, before you slide it all back together, give the surfaces a good wipe down. You can see there's a lot of dirt in there. I want to make sure this hub seats in here real nice so it doesn't come loose on you. And same for the hub. Now I'm just slowly working this back in here and tightening the bolts, just kind of alternating between them all, just to make it easier to get everything seated straight. Even once you get one of them to bottom out, make sure you alternate before you pull them real tight. All right, you can look up close here and see the bolts sticking through, just to make sure you're seated correctly and the bolts are pulled through all the way. Have a look at all 3 of them. That's how you know that everything's tight. Or kind of just to kind of confirm everything's tight and seated all the way. Don't forget to go ahead and hit those 3 with a torque wrench, whatever the appropriate torque spec is for your car. Then we can get our CV hub nut back on. And of course, I'll come back and torque this to the appropriate spec. Then we can slide our brake disc back on. All right, now we'll get our brake caliper reinstalled. right, guys, that's gonna pretty much wrap it up here. I'm gonna get started on the other side. You guys should get started on your projects, but before you go, make sure you hit that subscribe button if you want to stay updated on stuff with the car and anything else I'm up to. And please hit that like button if this video helped you out in any way. You can see now, tire's right flush with the fender. I think I gotta air it up just a tiny little bit, but this turned out exactly how I wanted it. I'm super happy with it. It's perfect. So thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.